The age of reason changed Europe forever. With the rise of enlightenment, philosophers and scientists, old traditions and worldviews had to evolve. Everything had to answer to reason and criticism, and institutions surrendered their powers over thoughts. But by the end of the 18th century, the Enlightenment era lost its brightness. Things needed to evolve once more, and it's during this period one of the most brilliant philosophers across history lived, Immanuel Kant. The sovereignty of reason and the demystification of nature, thanks to the Enlightenment, gave way to fears of undermining morality. If reason wasn't constrained, won't it lead to unwanted consequences? If nature was mechanistic, governed by laws outside our control, what freedom do we have? And if we had no freedom, how can we be held morally responsible? Kant faced these questions and he responded to them. Reason doesn't need to be constrained because reason can criticize itself. The new knowledge brought by science didn't mean that we're not free. Kant put the subject at the center of knowledge instead of the object, an analogy akin to what Copernicus did by putting the sun at the center of the solar system. Kant meant that pure objective reality is unattainable, hence his transcendental idealism, in which he claims that we can only cognize perceptions and not the things in themselves. We cannot know the true nature of the objects in the world. We only experience appearances. As Kant put it, we have therefore wanted to say that all our intuition is nothing but the representation of appearance, that the things that we intuit are not in themselves what we intuit them to be. Kant divides knowledge into appearances, attainable to us, and things in themselves. Appearances can be sensibilities, a faculty of intuition, either a priori or pure intuition prior to any perception, things like space and time, which is according to Kant the basis of geometry and mathematics. Or a posteriori, empirical intuition, derived from our experience and perception of the world. These intuitions are the sensations that exist in space and time. On the other hand, there is understanding, a faculty of concepts. A concept, which can also be pure or empirical, is our capacity to think of what is common to objects, resulting in giving the law structure of nature. For example, principles like causality, with nature defined as the sum of all appearances. The pure concepts are fundamental and independent from experience. In other words, they are presupposed in experience, and they are called categories. For example, the category of substance. We cannot experience a substance like a perfume bottle if you have no understanding of the pure concept of substance. Categories are arrived at by the process of abstraction, and the proof of objectivity to our claims to knowledge involves the demonstration of the objective validity of the categories. Furthermore, true experience can only be generated after sensibilities and understanding are combined in a process called transcendental synthesis. With sensibility, a passive faculty, we can perceive the objects around us, and with understanding, an active faculty, we conceptualize them. For example, we smell a perfume, but only after synthesis and understanding we get what it is and experience it. And if we want to have an opinion of it, we need the faculty of judgment, which is introduced in Kant's metaphysical deduction. With judgment, we can say that the perfume smelled good. Notice when Kant employs we, talking about who's perceiving, he doesn't refer to himself or his readers, but he refers to anything capable of self-consciousness, the beings who can know their experience and for whom the I think accompanies all their perception. because the presupposition of self-consciousness is central to his arguments, and the lack thereof means that one cannot experience at all, and distinguishing the subject and the object wouldn't be possible. As we've seen, science only applies to appearances, and if we remove our subject from them, nothing will remain. Because as appearances, they can't exist in themselves, they can only exist in us. But that doesn't mean they are not real. They are real, just like the things in themselves. What about Kant's moral philosophy? We don't know anything about the things in themselves, so how can we say for sure that we're free? Kant justifies certain beliefs about the things in themselves because it's practical to do so. Unlike theoretical philosophy that we discussed before, which explains how the world is, practical philosophy discusses how the world ought to be. A human concern with morality and happiness leads us to think of an ideal world he calls the highest good. And although we don't have theoretical knowledge that we're free, we all hold ourselves morally responsible. Kant says, were there no freedom, the moral law would not be encountered at all in ourselves. Additionally, Kant explains that for someone to be held morally accountable, his actions must be internal, and must be outside of time, meaning that they are not a consequence of a cause prior to them, even if that cause is internal, since it's in the past and the past can't be changed. By applying the principles of transcendental idealism, the cause of that action is in itself outside of nature, only then it can be a free action. Kant also distinguishes between moral and immoral actions by defining maxims. A maxim is a goal or an end we desire, whether moral or immoral. For example, becoming a doctor. In order to satisfy that maxim, we need to act in a specific way to fulfill it. Kant calls that way a hypothetical imperative. It is hypothetical because it only applies if we want to fulfill the desire. Following the example, the hypothetical imperative here would be going to medical school. Contrasting that, there is the categorical imperative, which applies always to everyone, regardless of the desire we have, and it's defined as a way we must act in. Moral laws are categorical imperatives, and the maxims can only be moral if they are universalizable. In other words, whether everyone can act on it. For example, if I want to steal, I ask whether everyone can steal. If no, then it's not universalizable, and therefore immoral. Immanuel Kant's work is one of the most influential works in philosophy of all time. His attempt to reconcile traditional morality with science, and to answer the question, what can we know, still influence our lives to this day. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, if you dare to know.